Hello Glitter Witches. Today's video is a collaboration video with Ivy the Occultist and Midwest Magician. We are going to talk about how to connect with the spirit of your home. Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Justin Bennett. I am the Witch of Enchantment, and like I said, today we are talking about connecting to the spirit of your home. This is a collaboration that I'm doing, and if you want to check out Ivy the Occultist, I highly encourage you to do so. She is actually going through 14 different ways to connect to the spirit of your home. You can also go check out Sophie, Midwest Magician. She's going to be showing some of her action and how she's going to connect with the spirit of her home, and I am going to be the pessimist of the group. I guess I'm not technically a pessimist of the group. I just have, my house spirit just hates me. That's all there is to it. I don't actually know if the house spirit hates me, but I have been failing at this miserably, and there's a couple of reasons why I think that is, so I'm going to get into that. I'm going to tell you what I've done, and then we also are going to have a follow-up video to this, hopefully with more promising news. I do highly encourage you to go check out Ivy's video. She does list, like I said, 14 ways to connect. Sophie and I are both pulling things from that list, so definitely go check that out. It will be super beneficial for you if you're wanting to connect with the spirit of your own home. I think the best first step as we navigate why this house spirit hates me and why I'm a complete and utter failure, we need to talk about the residence itself. So the home is a townhome. It's been within our family for over 20 years. Numerous amounts of family members have lived here over that time frame, and it's been also a rental to people just for the general public. Now, before we moved here 6 years ago, there was a lot of not great things happening in this townhome, and the vibe here ever since then has been kind of off, and I have consistently tried to work in cleansing and getting this space to feel renewed, and that has happened over the years, but there was a lot of illegal things happening in this townhome. I'll leave it at that. It was really a shock to the system to move here, especially after having so many family gatherings here and being here before those people lived here. The house definitely needed a revamp, and we're still working on remodeling and updating. This house had been through a lot in that 2 years that it was rented out to somebody in the general public, and they really did lasting damage, which is unfortunate. Like I said, this unit has been in our family for over 20 years. There's multiple townhomes in our neighborhood that are owned by family members, so there's a lot of significance there. So this home also is built on what used to be an orange grove. It was a very profitable orange grove in the 50s and 60s until it wasn't, and then it was sold to a developer who built townhomes on it. And that's pretty much what I can tell you about where I live. Now that we've talked about the residence and the home itself, let's talk a little bit about what the goals were for this experience. Now, I have never tried to connect with the spirit of this home, ever. It's never been on my radar. It really isn't even a concept that I've even considered until now. I have heard of entities like brownies and other sorts of entities that are talked about in folkloric traditions, homegrown tales of the South, whether you're talking about Ireland or Scotland, Russian, even Eastern cultures that talk about spirits that live within the home to please so that you don't lose things, you know, spirits of the hearth. But I've never considered like a spirit for the home, like a soul type thing. It's never something that I've leaned into or ever even considered. But even with that being said, I wanted to try to approach this with an open mind. I was unable to do so. Immediately upon thinking about doing this, I was immediately overcome with anxiety. Spirit work in this way is something that I find highly and extremely intimidating. More recently, I have been able to trust my intuition and kind of go with the flow and trust that whatever I'm getting is what spirit will have me to know. But just thinking about challenging my psyche into understanding that a spirit dwells here and it is an entity that makes this house come alive or is a representation of this house is just a concept that I found extremely difficult to buy into. I knew that that was going to be difficult. I didn't realize how difficult that was going to be. I got a little sidetracked and a little ahead of myself. What were the goals of this? The goals really were to identify who the house spirit is, how they present, a name for this house spirit, what kind of offerings they want, and to really build a reciprocal relationship. That was the goal. Spoiler alert, didn't happen. But that was the goal, and that is going to be the continued goal that I'm going to try to achieve. There's also an aspect of this that makes me feel slightly overwhelmed because I'm deepening my relationship with deity Hekate. I'm also doing a lot of work with my grandmother right now on top of all of the covenant work that I'm doing, and I don't have an initial interest to build a relationship organically, but it's something now that I feel challenged to do. And since I tried it and it didn't come easy, I feel even more challenged and annoyed to a point where I want it to happen simply because it hasn't. And I think that's more of my motivating factor right now. That really leans into what are the roadblocks. I've kind of already talked about that, but leaning into all the other reasons why I feel like it's not really happening for me right now. The one that I really talked about already is having lived here already for almost 6 years and never making the attempt to connect with the spirit of this house makes me feel like, in a way, not acknowledging the existence or doubting the existence, I believe already puts a block up between communication between us. Because I'm doubting the existence, I'm not feeding, I'm not considering. That's highly disrespectful. If I was sharing a dorm room with somebody per se, and that person consistently ignored me and never acknowledged me, did whatever they wanted to do, I really wouldn't be open for any sort of relationship or friendship with that person. And so in that regard, I think there's going to need to be a lot of sweetening up between us in order for me to have any sort of meaningful connection or any sort of reciprocal connection that I think is going to be beneficial for either one of us. So that's the first thing that I really think I have to do to remedy just the initial ignorance of the situation and the non-belief of the entity. I can already hear the comments, so we're going to go ahead and talk about this. I know that entities, spirits have a much higher vibration than we do. They have a better understanding than we do. And maybe I am just thinking about it all wrong, but I don't think so. And just for the reason that I've already explained, being a magical person, not even just witchery, just a magical, religious person and practicing magic and connecting with spirits and not acknowledging or subconsciously denying the existence that there could be a spirit of this house, I just think is initially damaging to a connection that we could have. Also, when you take into the account of what happened here for the few years that no family lived here, and it was a very not good place, I just think that it can make the dwelling of the spirit and human not the best connection. I will say nothing crazy here happens. Things don't randomly break. I just don't know that there's any signs or communication from the spirit, even if I wanted to acknowledge its existence, but I also haven't been looking for them. So I just wanted to put that out there. I know that as magical practitioners and people who do spirit work have this idea that spirits are elevated, and I agree with that. I think entities do know more than we do, regardless of whether our relationship is on the same plane or not, the physical plane and spiritual, physical and astral. There is still a give and a take, and to deny somebody's existence is just kind of innately disrespectful. So I see that as a roadblock. I do still think it can be remedied, and I'm going to attempt to do that. There's also a strong chance that I am just completely overthinking the whole thing and it's all bullshit, and if I just focus enough and put enough work, that it will all work out. That's also a possibility. Another roadblock, it really is kind of on the same token, but hot button issue here, okay? People hate when I talk about this, and I hit the unfollow and subscribe. They hate me and damn me to hell. I'm not an animist. I want to say my relationship with the thought of animism is one that is of ebb and flow. I don't know how I feel about inanimate objects or plants having souls and spirits, and that leans for me into the same category as a house spirit. I don't necessarily believe that. It's a hard thing for me to get behind, for me to understand the complexity of what that is, mainly because of how I was raised and how I was indoctrinated to believe souls work and how spirits work. And when we start talking about the spirit of a house or the spirit of a plant or of a candle, it makes me turn into what I think about the afterlife, which is still something that I'm wrestling with, and just what that means to me. And not everybody needs an answer for that or needs to really have a full thought out process of where they think we go when we die. But when we talk about spirits or spirits of this house or spirits of a plant, that is where my mind goes. If this house does have a spirit, where does that spirit come from? Now that's a whole conversation that we could have, and people do have, about how a spirit of a home is created through the people who live there and the actions that happen here. That also leads me into thinking about the grudge and that how trauma never leaves and horror lives forever. Not necessarily a conversation I want to have or a thought I want to think about, but I feel like in many ways I need to work out in some way what I think about that in order for me to be successful in working or communicating with the spirit of this house, if there even is one. As far as animism is concerned, we are coming to the close of that aspect of this conversation, but I did want to add that even my own self-awareness makes me hyper-vigilant to the fact that my own dogma or my own set of beliefs make no sense, because I have not had this issue when it comes to working with Hekate. I have not had this issue since connecting with my grandmother. It is a hurdle that I have to overcome when it comes to objects that are, in my eyes, not alive or not living. It becomes hard for me to try to connect and understand that they are a living thing or that it has a spirit. And it makes that initial contact even that much more difficult for me to do. Now, when it comes to Hekate or it comes to my grandmother, I still do have the questions about the afterlife, and that's a whole conversation that I would encourage us to have at some point, because I don't feel like we have that conversation at all in our witchy community. But I will leave the conversation about the afterlife and animism for another time, but that does feed into why I think I'm unable to connect. We are going to get into two things that I did do to try to connect. I'm going to talk about those briefly, and then I want to talk about what we're going to do throughout these few weeks of November to try to continue to connect outside of getting over these roadblocks, what physically, magically we're going to try to do, and I'm going to bring you footage of that in the next video. But before we get into all of those things and all of that, I did want to say, 13 minutes into this video, if you're still sticking around, thank you, that I do think it's important for us to have these conversations. I think a lot of times in social media, we see people doing magic or talking about spirit communication, and we have no relative information on how long it took them to get there. And that's another aspect to this as well. Ivy and Sophie have both started this work far before this collaboration, and I commend them. They've been so helpful in the knowledge that they have, but I haven't. And not everything comes as easily to everybody, whether it's their own set of belief systems or old indoctrination that they have to overcome, or just their own skill set or their ableness to do certain things is different. And I think this part of the conversation and this part of the collaboration is important to normalize the fact that not everything comes easy to everybody, and not everything is perfect, and that's okay. So that's really what I wanted to bring to this conversation, because I wasn't sure if I was even going to still participate in the collaboration, because I didn't have anything I felt of value to say. And Ivy and Sophie both reminded me that this experience is important because it's showing my experience and what it's like and what my roadblocks are. And that's helpful. So If you feel like you're not always hitting the high notes, there was a tag going around not that long ago about witchcraft fails. This is a fail right now. If I can get past my own belief system, if I can get past my dogma, then I can hopefully find success. And that's what I wanted to bring to this conversation and this aspect of the collaboration. Is sometimes it doesn't work out at first. You just got to keep trying. Well, we're about 16 minutes in and somebody showed up because my candlestick just lit on fire. So lighting's a little bit different, but I was about to die. Again, the house spirit wants me dead. Let's talk about what I actually did. Moving into this space and connecting with the spirit of the house, I really wanted to start off slow with meditation, maybe an offering, and that's what I did. I started off with sitting in the living room, put down an orange, lit a candle, did some meditation, not a damn thing. I continued to try to connect. The only person that will come through, that has consistently been coming through, by the way, is my grandmother. She wants to communicate. She's still not talking. We're still working. But she's presenting herself to me at every beck and call, which I'm happy about. I'm still cultivating that relationship, and maybe that's why I'm unable to connect. I don't know if maybe there's just not a spirit here. Is she blocking them out? I don't know. We're going to continue to try, but she's the only one coming through when I meditate. Even when I'm calling out to the spirit of the house or making offerings, I either feel absolutely nothing, like I'm getting nothing, no shivers, no signs, I'm not seeing anything, I'm not feeling anything, like nothing, or she shows up. Those are the only two things that I'm experiencing right now. Moving forward throughout this month, what do I want to do? I want to create an altar for the spirit of this house. And I think what I'm going to do is not wait for signs or connection or a presence. I'm just going to act as though it is here. And I am laying out breadcrumbs. I'm giving peace offerings and saying, hello, I'm here. I'm acknowledging whoever you are, whatever you are, if you want to communicate, and carving out the time and the space to let that happen organically if the spirit wants it to. You know, that may take some time because of how long everybody's been ignoring it. And, you know, if my grandmother's pushing that out, I don't know. But that's my plan. I want to do an altar. I do want to continue to do meditation. I am going to do divination, which I haven't done yet. I like to take it slow when it comes to spirit work, but we're going to kind of step on the gas a little bit here. And I am going to break out the tarot, the oracle, and the pendulum to hopefully facilitate some more clear communication, even if it's not through meditation. Divination is a good tool to use, so we're going to lean on that as well. Like I said, in the second part of this video, at the end of this month, I am going to show you actually what I'm doing. We're going to talk about the successes, if I've had any revelations, or maybe I'll be dead. In all seriousness, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Please, 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 any tips, tricks, any personal gnosis that you have, please leave down in the comments below. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and to listen to my nonsense and my experience or my lack thereof, my failure, my non-success. Thank you for listening to that. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can join a channel membership and get access to the Discord. You can also check out Wine and Witchcraft Live. I also need to take the opportunity to thank once again Ivy and Sophie for including me on this beautiful collaboration. I hope at the end of this month I have a good report to give you. And a good experience, but I really just wanted to say thank you for being here. I appreciate you greatly, and until next time, bye, Glitter Witches.